start with Shefty. Up early this morning, breaking some news on Russell Wilson. What do we need to know about Russ and his situation, Shefty?
Well, Hannah, the Denver Broncos have given him permission now to go shop for a new team, and they were going to designate him as being released after June 1 next week when the new league year starts on Wednesday. But because they're doing it Wednesday in the interim, they've given him permission to go seek a new home, to go visit with other teams, which isn't allowed for other players until next Wednesday. So essentially, Russell Wilson has a 1-week start on free agency. If he can make something count, he's allowed to talk to teams, unlike other players. He's allowed to visit teams, unlike other players. And that could essentially turn into a little bit of an advantage if he can find a new home here at some point in the next week. For the Broncos, no big deal to them to give him permission. They know they're moving on from him. Might as well do him a favor here and grant him that permission, which they have. And now we'll see if Russell can find a home here before free agency begins.
Yeah, Adam, thanks. And before we start talking about who should be on that phone and who Russell Wilson should be talking to, this has been a point of discussion. Do you see him as a starter in the NFL next season?
I do see him as a viable starter, mostly because he still has his skill set. He still has good arm, good decision maker. It's really about finding the right fit as far as the offensive scheme.
All right, RC, what about you?
Well, I mean, the big thing is it's about finding the right fit for the offensive scheme, but also for the personality. And I'm not one of those people who are going to beat down Russell Wilson and say that he can't be a leader of the team. And some of the things we heard leaked from the Denver Broncos. But when you think about Russ and his match with Sean Payton, personality-wise and schematically, that wasn't the right fit. And so now moving on, what team needs a bridge quarterback? What team needs a quarterback that can come in and compete with maybe a young starter like a Kenny Pickett and sort of get him going in those competitive juices to have to prove himself in order to be a franchise guy?
Well, I don't disagree that Pittsburgh wouldn't be a bad fit for him because, again, it is a young football team. But another quality young football team is Atlanta. A lot of good skilled players. And, again, a guy like Russell comes in who's had the experience, who can help lead that group. That might be a real good spot for him.
I think that would be a great spot. But also, like recently, we just heard that the New York Giants are absolutely done with Daniel Jones, which seems difficult to be because you still owe him guaranteed money. Why not bring in a guy like Russell Wilson? We've seen what Brian Daboll can do with quarterbacks, and maybe that gives him an opportunity to play within the scheme that helps him, and he can use his leadership inside that locker room as a big voice for all those young players.
Yeah, trying to confirm more of that situation with the Giants. Okay, so we'll actually see what happened there. We do know that Sierra graduated from high school in Atlanta, started her musical career there, so that's one thing. Adam, what else can you add?
Well, you have more extensive musical knowledge than I do, Hannah, but what I would say here is this. Russell Wilson offers two advantages that a lot of other quarterbacks don't. Number one, any team that signs him will not have to compensate the Denver Broncos. And number two, the Broncos already are paying him $39 million in guaranteed money this upcoming year, which means a team likely could sign him for roughly the veteran minimum. So the investment that it would take for another team to bring in Russell Wilson will be such that there's no risk at all involved, and they'd be getting a quarterback who last year threw 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions before he was benched, and he's going to want to go out there and prove a point. So again, it's just essentially a roster spot for somebody as accomplished as Russell Wilson. That might make a lot of sense for a lot of teams out there right now.
Yeah, it obviously has to make sense both ways, right? If he has choices, will he want to go in and compete for a starting job somewhere? As Russell Wilson is one of several veteran quarterbacks on the free agent market this offseason, a list which includes Baker Mayfield, who led the Bucs to that divisional round in the playoffs in his first season in Tampa Bay, really resurrected his career. And after 6 seasons with the Vikings, here we go again. Kirk Cousins plays this game better than anyone on the planet. He is set to become a free agent. I mean, goals, right, with the way he's handled his business. Prior to tearing his Achilles in Week 8, Cousins was in the midst of one of the best seasons of his career at this point in his career, which is so remarkable. 18 touchdown passes, tied for the most in the NFL. Second most passing yards in the league, also ranking in the top 5 in completion percentage. So, Adam, what do you expect the market to look like for Cousins next week?
I think the market's going to be strong, despite the fact that he's coming off a torn Achilles. You're talking about the top quarterback available. You're talking about arguably the top free agent available, somebody that can come in and essentially help turn around a program, restore credibility. The two teams that you continue to hear most often are the Minnesota Vikings, who would like to bring him back, and the Atlanta Falcons, who have prioritized the quarterback position. No surprise there. Now the question becomes, is there another team that somehow jumps in there, sneaks in there, like Washington, which Coach Rivera knows a lot about? Maybe the Denver Broncos, if there's enough cap space. Is there another team out there that could make a move? But I think Kirk Cousins is going to have options. Atlanta makes a lot of sense. His wife is from there. He's lived there in previous off seasons. They need somebody to upgrade that position. But Kirk Cousins, I would think, will come off the board rather quickly next week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that Washington possibility in a minute. And I guess it is all about the wives, right? Like his wife, Julie, grew up in Alpharetta.
I mean, she dresses him. We saw that on the documentary. She dresses him already. And why not move to a place where she's most comfortable?
There you go. I mean, listen, happy wife. We all know about that. Coach, in addition to familial concerns, what kind of system do you think makes the most sense for him?
Well, I think coming off of play action for the most part, because again, he does a nice job faking and then pulling up and finding the receivers downfield. He will push the ball vertically. He's got a good arm, still very accurate with that, but he has enough mobility to move in the pocket and sustain the play and find somebody downfield and make something happen.
RC, what do you think?
Well, I think Coach is telling you exactly what you want to hear if you're the Atlanta Falcons, and Zach Robinson is your offensive coordinator. He comes from that Sean McVay tree, and when that tree or when those offenses are at their best, it starts with the run game. And you'll have Tyler Algier, but young Bijan Robinson, who is poised to be a star. Arthur Smith just wouldn't get him the football. And so now coming off that, you can use Kyle Pitts. You can also put the ball in Drake London's hands. And so I think that would be a really good fit. But isn't, like you said on the call, isn't Minnesota a fit?
I would love to see him stay
We've seen the sort of player he was there. You saw last year, in the midst of a slow start for the team, he was starting to turn things around with the leadership and production. I think Kirk Cousins will have a heavy market once free agency starts.
I love that improved defense, too. Got to lock up Justin Jefferson.